All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to Recovery Live. C4 Innovations is once again thrilled to bring you another Recovery Live event. And we're going to continue to just bring top tier speakers, interesting and challenging issues, and creative strategies and knowledge that will help peers and non-peers alike in improving the lives of others experiencing behavioral health challenges wherever they may arise. Now, we at C4 Innovations, or C4 for short, are committed to advancing recovery, wellness, and housing stability for people who are marginalized. We're committed to reducing disparities and achieving equitable outcomes, and we engage, support, and partner with service organizations, with communities, and with systems to develop and implement research-based, recovery-oriented, person-centered, and trauma-informed approaches. You can learn more about the work that C4 does by visiting the site at c4innovates.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube if you're so inclined. Recovery Live events are really interactive. You engage directly with our presenters and with each other through the live chat box. The presenters will then share some of their initial thoughts, and then we're going to answer questions that all of you raised during this event. Audience members are in the listen-only mode, and you can introduce yourselves, post questions, share ideas and resource links, or let us know about your tech difficulties simply by typing them right into the chat box. And if you need to send a private message to one of the presenters or the hosts, please be sure that you've used the drop-down arrow and select all panelists in order to get your message directly to them. But folks, we really enjoy and we want you all to participate in the chat to the extent you feel comfortable. So to do that, you simply need to make sure you select hosts and attendees. And that, I believe, is the default setting anyway. And then your message will go out to all of us on the event. To access the chat, you click the word chat on your screen and the chat box is going to pop right out. You can resize it a little, then click and drag it to the side so it stays up, but mostly out of the way of other content. Now, today's event's going to last approximately 1 hour, and it is being recorded. The recording link will be shared with all registrants after this event. It will also be available on the C4 YouTube channel listed on the slide. If, as you are listening to the content here, you feel your organization may need technical assistance around this or any other topic, please email us at training@c4innovates.com. And we're happy to discuss your needs, brainstorm strategies and potential solutions, and work together with you to determine the best technical assistance possible to meet those individual needs. I mentioned earlier that C4 and Recovery Live events work to bring you top-tier experts and speakers to provide input and expertise on a variety of topics. Today is again no exception, and we are beyond fortunate to have some additional amazing presenters with us. And we're going to be talking today about recovery and reentry and how planning for those things should really begin at the point of arrest. And the more we prepare those with criminal justice involvement for success upon release, the more individual success and less recidivism we're going to see. Now, as such, I am just really pleased to introduce today's presenters. First off, we're going to have Ashley Lewis, who is the Criminal Justice Recovery Manager at SOS Recovery Community Organization, located in New Hampshire. We'll then go to Helen Skipper, who is the Manager of Peer Services with the New York City Criminal Justice Agency. And finally, George Brott, who is the Chief Missions Officer with BroughtWorks Consulting. George is going to get us all home. So on to what we're all here for. With that, let's get started. I'm going to turn this over to Ashley. Ashley, can you kick us off, please?
Thanks, Steve. So my name is Ashley Lewis. I'm a Criminal Justice Recovery Manager for SOS Recovery Community Organization, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our program, Peer Strength, if you want to go to the next slide. So what are we? So we are a criminal justice peer-assisted recovery program, but I want to talk a little bit about what starting this program was like for me. So I'm going to back up quite a few years and just share some self-disclosure. So back when I entered the criminal justice system myself, it was always due to charges that were and always have been fueled by my addiction. And I believe way back then that I got thrown into jail at a point in my life where jail was actually more harmful to my well-being than it was helpful. And that would eventually shift along the way years down the road, but we're talking back in the straight punitive days. So I fell through the cracks several times, meaning I was always released and expected to live a different way, but never shown anything different. And the truth is, my addiction will 100% prey on any crack the system provides. So now I come from a good family, and they were always good for showing me how to live a productive life, but not so much about meeting me where I was at. And for a long time, I was not ready to be abstinent, which kept me revolving in and out of the system for about 10 years. Now, through those years, I managed to circle through most programs that my court had to offer. And I was on programs like probation. I had been on community corrections, which is bail supervision. And I've managed to do drug court not just once, but twice. Graduated both times, though. So go me. Now, during my time through all of those, I had become extremely familiar with all of the staff that makes up those programs, being that I spent most of my adult years in their office chairs, which brings me to starting this program. So when I got out of jail this time around, I didn't intentionally, but managed to start creating a different life for myself. Now, the recovery movement had really just started, so there wasn't really any recovery centers established until about 10 months after I had gotten out of jail. But once one opened, you could always find me there, which is where I started to find something that I had never had before, which was a safe space where I could be me while surrounded with like-minded individuals who were all working towards the same goal, who shared the same struggles. So once I started gaining my own traction, I then started helping others, which is where my purpose came in, which eventually led me to finding my way out of the system, which then created my passion, which is now helping others find their way out of the criminal justice system and into recovery. So when I started this program, I share all of that with you so that you can kind of have a visual of what it was like sitting at this table. So when I had started this program, I had to sit down at a table with the very people who had case managed me and essentially demand professional respect and, most importantly, trust. I was seeking no power differential, and the idea was risky and foreign to them. So I was asking for them to allow me to come there, to allow me to help other people while only having information sharing going one way. I've always been a risk taker, and that, looking back, that was probably a pretty tall order at the time, but they agreed and they were able to get approval from the powers that be. And so there it began. So they trudged lightly, but they were trudging. And for that, I was super grateful. And so how it works is they have a conference room that's stationed down the hall in the courtroom, the courthouse. And when somebody who is on any form of those supervision programs that I had just talked about, their case manager walks them down. They walk them into this office space, and they give me an introduction about what's going on, if they're struggling or what they're in need of supports. And then the case manager or parole officer exits, and we sit down and we do the work. And so the program offers a form of strength-based supports for people who struggle with addictions or are in recovery. And the primary goal is I wanted it to help provide individuals with hope and compassion. And that wasn't there when I was going through all of those. I didn't have a me to sit down with me and hug me or help me. I just had the staff kind of show me the way. And as a result, I always found myself wishing and wanting to be one of them because that's what I essentially wanted. So when I had gained traction, I wanted to be that person for other people who wasn't a case manager, who I was just like them. So we help participants find ways to help with their substance use disorders in a manner that is consistent with their own desires, strengths, and needs, which consists of a ton of goal setting where we break down each goal into a bunch of tasks and however many tasks it takes to complete that goal. Because it's not always that we don't know what we need to do, it's that we don't necessarily know how to make that happen. So it's very, very helpful. So we help people find resources for harm reduction, detox, treatment, family support, education, local or online support groups, or help clients create a change plan to create their own, to recover on their own. And it's not unusual for us to focus more on reducing harm. And a lot of times I'm meeting people exactly where they're at. And if they're not ready to stop using, I want to make sure they're using safely. And so that's why it's really important for information sharing to go one way. So I can't be disclosing to parole or drug court that somebody is using. So it's really, really powerful. Next slide. So who we are. So after going through all of that, you kind of have a glimpse about who I am. And that's the most powerful piece behind our program is we are individuals who have had similar life experiences. Every single one of us has had criminal justice involvement. I just kind of gave you a rundown of mine, but I actually have an individual who is on federal, he's currently awaiting trial for federal charges. I have another one who's been to prison, who's no longer on probation or parole, and I have one that's actually in the process of getting her record expunged. So every single one of us has had criminal justice involvement in some way, shape, or form. And we've all had trainings, including harm reduction, motivational interviewing. We take the art and science of peer-assisted recovery, ethics. We obtain our CRSWs, which is a certified recovery support worker in the state of New Hampshire. And if you don't have that when you're hired, it's an expectation within the first 6 months. And so my favorite line is, they are the creators, we are their guides. Next slide. So some of the access points that we have managed to weasel our way into, and I say weasel because being that person that fell through the cracks, I found it very important to me to kind of have a presence in any access point that I could get us into. So we now have a physical presence at the Superior Courthouse and do exactly what I just explained about navigating people in peer services. We have a presence in 2 different drug courts, one virtually, one in person. I mean, COVID, we're virtually all around right now, but in a normal world, we are physically there. We teach peer-assisted groups in 2 different county jails, and we offer digital and telerecovery services to individuals in rural areas in our state. So whether that be virtual through Zoom or telephonically or email or whatever, but we have a program that targets areas that aren't even like next to us at this point. So that's really cool. So people are getting services where services are lacking. And then we have 3 recovery centers as well. So we manage to get ourselves in a lot of areas. Next slide. So trust and releases. And so I touched on this, and when I had talked about sitting down at a table and demanding that professional respect and getting them to share information. At one point it was hard enough to get my own information, but now it was very challenging in the beginning to get them to share important information that would help me in helping somebody else. If somebody's on the run or they have charges coming or they have a warrant, like that's stuff I should know. But trust and release is a very, very critical piece to what we do. And it's essential that a participant trusts us, and trust in early recovery is difficult and sometimes impossible to achieve, given a system that is built around punitive measures and living in a society filled with shame and stigma. It's not uncommon for an individual to disclose information related to reoccurrences or challenges that they would never want to share with their probation officer. The beauty of the peer-assisted recovery support is, through that level of trust, we can often help motivate change by encouraging individuals to be empowered in making decisions that will enhance their recovery. So turning themselves in, for example. This means we often challenge thoughts and decisions that might negatively impact engagement with probation, providers, and the criminal justice system. And if we are forced to disclose that information, the trust is lost, and they will simply see us as an extension of the probation department. So we encourage a relationship with probation where the extent of disclosure is limited to whether a participant is engaging with us or not. Very, very important. And then next slide. And I just wanted to wrap my time up with some testimony because I feel it's very powerful. I have one down here, and then I have another one that just recently happened that I'll share. So participant says pretty recently, he's habitually homeless, been homeless the entire time I've been case managing him. He continuously catches charges for disorderly contact, like trespassing and stuff like that. And he said, you know what makes working with you different than anything else I've ever experienced before? And I said, let's hear it, buddy, because that's how I talk to all my people, because they're my friends. They're not even like a client to me. They're my people. And he says, never once have you asked me what I'm doing or what I want to do. You always say, all right, what are we doing? And it's always made me feel like you're in this with me. I never feel like I'm alone with you. And that was so powerful. Because it's true. That's how I speak. I'm always speaking a we and not a you. And then the other one I have is actually from a community corrections case manager. Is he called me the other day and said, hey, I just am calling to find out if this individual is engaged with you or not, because he is not engaged with me, but I know that he speaks with you, and as long as he's speaking with you, I'm not going to file for a warrant. And that was powerful because just for this relationship that he has with me, that's telling. So from sitting at the table asking and demanding this professional respect to like where we're at now 2 years down the road, that's huge. So that is all I have for you today. So I'm going to hand it right over to Skip.
And Skip is right here. I just had to put on my spectacles. You know, I'm at that age where I can't see anything. Well, hello, America. I always wanted to say that. I always wanted to say hello, America, because I believe that the trials and tribulations that people with lived experiences are going through needs to be broadcast nationwide, international. So let me start. You can go to the next slide. I've ridden around the block a time or two without my mommy's permission. That's a saying I always say when I'm talking about my lived experiences. Lived experiences are vital. I have been in every system in New York City and New York State. I've been homeless. I've been in drug programs. I've been incarcerated both at the county, Rikers Island, and at the state level numerous times. I started going back and forth through my incarceration period when I was 17. I left out for the last time in my early 40s. Now listen, America, I know I look like I'm a day over 18. I know, nobody has to laugh because I know I do. But at the bare essentials, I just want to point out that I'm 54. So I have spent an inordinate amount of time going in and out of systems. I've been on the hamster wheel of recidivism. Let's be clear. These bids that I did, they weren't straight bids. It wasn't like I went in and came out 30 years later. I was incarcerated, institutionalized, homeless, or addicted to drugs almost every year since the time I started. So what I am now, besides having a master's of life because of my lived experience, I'm also a project engineer. And I want to recognize and acknowledge the fact that I took that terminology from somebody, and I can't remember who it is, but it's true. I am engineering a new world, a new system. I started with myself. I built myself up. I built the resilience up. I went past all my traumatizations, and we're going to get on that in a minute because women are so horribly traumatized by the system, a system that is supposed to be rehabilitative, but is very much punitive. When women enter systems, criminal justice system, any type of system, they are traumatized, they're victimized, they're abused. They're just dumped on, and it's like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. But then we have this new dynamic that's coming around. We have power and privilege. Now, we all know what power and privilege is. Power and privilege can come to you by right of your race. But power and privilege also comes to you by gender. And as we all know, males run around with that power and privilege cloak on. by right of the fact that they were born males. But then you have a woman who has been beaten down by the system, who has been stepped on, who has been trod on, who has been kicked to the curb. You have a woman that goes into these systems. And guess what, America? I'm going to bring something up, and some people might say ew or something like that, but this is a very real situation that women go through. We have our own unique situations. We have our own unique health challenges. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up with brothers and my father. And no, I never went to them and started talking to them about my sanitary needs. I never went to them and started talking about my menstruation cycle and how many pads and things I need. But when women go into these systems and you have these males or anybody who is putting on what I like to call the superhero cloak of power and privilege, and all of a sudden the chest puffs out and it's like, dun, 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 power and privilege man. And you have to talk to these people and you have to beg these people for the basic necessities, for things that you need. Not only do you have to beg these people for material items, nobody is helping you in reentry. Reentry should start from the day you walk into an institution or facility, not a month or so before you leave. 9 out of 10 of those of us, and this is just, not just women, this is male, when we enter into an institution or a facility, we're living at the intersectionality of behavioral health and criminal justice. So we need help with a few issues. It's not really about what did we do. It should be about what happened to us, what brought us to that place. I've never been in a facility where I've had all my needs taken into consideration. I've never been in a facility where people have looked at me and say, how can we help you? I've gone into incarcerations homeless. I've left out homeless. I've gone into incarcerations with a drug addiction. I've left out with that very same drug addiction. And less than a month or two later, because I'm dealing with parole, who essentially is not really working with me and all my issues, I've had a parole officer say to me, to my face, I don't care what you have to do with your children or anything else. I only care about what you have to do for us. When women come into these situations, they have children who might be in other systems or might be taken care of by families. But the thing that we want to look forward to is we want to look forward to reunification. I'm sorry, I could not come out of jail and flip burgers and fry fries and support myself and my family. I cannot rent a decent place to live. I cannot feed my children. I cannot clothe my children. So basically, because I receive no support, literally what you're saying to me is leave the kids where they are and we don't care about you. We're just going to throw you away. In this situation, I am intentional upon kicking down doors. I am creating spaces for people with lived experiences. The word on everybody's lips is criminal justice. How can you reform these systems without inviting people with lived experience to the table? And as a matter of fact, because I am totally unapologetic, you don't have to invite me to anybody's table. I am the table. You need to come sit with me. You need to come sit with me as we devise a way to make sure that these systems are trauma-informed, that we're actually helping people who come through these systems, that we're using adequate resources and we're getting together resources so that we can help one issue at a time. In my job today as a manager of peer services, I run a team of peers at the New York City Criminal Justice Agency. I am intentional upon creating more spaces for those of us with lived experience, I do that with the lens of that my lived experience is valid. My lived experience means something. And at the end of the day, when I sit down and I look at myself in the mirror, A lot of people have asked me if I could do it all over again. Would I? I'm not going to say that I would do it all over again. I realize that I've made some wrong choices. I made some bad decisions. I went left when I should have went right. I strode down the middle of the block on the yellow line when I should have stayed in safety on the sidewalk. I've done all of that. But the thing is that those lived experiences has made me who I am today. And who I am today, I am a college student. I am in the honors program. I am Greek. I'm in an honor society. I attend 2 schools. I attend St. Francis and I also attend Columbia University. All of this from an individual who 10 years ago, y'all tried to put me up under the jail. Y'all told me I was never going to be anything. I was never going to do anything. What y'all failed to do was look at my intelligence, look at my persistence, look at my resilience, look at my unapologeticness. And that's a word I just made up, so forgive me for that. I'll try to spell it in the chat. You didn't notice all of that because at the end of the day, as the systems kept kicking me down and I kept picking myself up and they kicked me down again and I picked myself up again. But every time I got up, I learned a thing or two and I implemented that. And today I stand firm in the conviction that I am going to change the system. I am going to affect and effect change. I am going to be that change maker. I am going to be that policy maker. I am going to be the one to sit at the table with that rhetoric, that collegial discourse that I'm learning in school. And I'm going to take that hustling mentality that I had when I was on the street, as I was running around to get my get high, as I was running around in facilities, locked down in Greens, trying to survive. I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to pull that together and wrap that up in one package and I'm going to hand that to you. And I dare you to tell me I can't. I dare anyone to tell anybody who has lived experiences that you can't recover. Recover is about the hope and the promise that one day you too can be whoever you want to be. I might even run for president next year. I don't know. What do y'all think? I think I'm about at my time. And I see Stephen looking at me, telling me, you know, so I want to thank you, America, for listening to me. I'll be around. Any questions, anything, I'll be around. Just know that we can do it. If we all put our mind to it, we can do it. If we all help each other, we can do it. You can do whatever you want to do, regardless of your background, regardless of your lived experience. Let's get this thing here together. Thank you, everybody. And now I'm going to pass it on to George.
Thank you so much, Skip and Ashley. What powerful stories of redemption you tell and are modeling. And I just want to make a contrast. I hope folks were paying attention to this idea that we are more than our past. And in both Ashley and Skip's stories, you heard about this is what I was, this is where I am, and this is where I'm going. And I think that's the message about reentry and recovery and the human spirit's resilience. Regardless of where we might have been or where we are now, most of us are headed somewhere. And it's about how we partner up in order to facilitate that in one another. So next slide, please. Want to kind of start with just an example of the contrast between how we might do this work in a more effective and efficient manner. So let's watch this short video.
You got questions, you come to me. I'm Carr, the floor walker. I'm responsible for order in here.
But you never stop listening to them clinking. They're gonna remind you what I've been saying.
And time keeps dragging
Your own good.
Wish you'd stop being so good to me, Captain.
But that train keeps rolling.
I hope you ain't gonna be a hard case.
Don't you ever talk that way to me.
Man forgets his number, spends the night in the box.
Now!
Any man loses his spoon spends the night in the box. Any man playing grab ass or fighting in the building spends the night in the box. Hell is at 8. Any man lots of his bunk at 8 spends the night in the box.
I hang my head and cry.
What we've got here is
Any man turns in the wrong sheet spends the night in the box.
failure to communicate.
So on, any man with dirty pants on sitting on the bunk spends the night in the box.
Some men you just can't reach.
Any man don't bring back his empty pop bottle spends the night in the box.
So you get what we had here last week, which is the way he wants.
Any man loud talking spends the night in the box.
Well, he gets.
Your bunk, any man caught smoking in the prone position in bed spends the night in the box.
I know I can't be.
I don't like it any more than you may.
And don't keep order, spends the night in the box.
And that's what tortures me.
So, don't want to belabor the point much. I mean, it really is about shifting from what are people's problems? What are their deficits? What are the diseases that they have? What are the disabilities that they have? To really begin focusing on what are their strengths and their skills and their abilities, and fostering a sense of community and belonging that allows those things to blossom and to bloom. So my background is in psychology, and I have had a 27-year career with the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles. And as part of that, I've pretty much always had one foot in 3 different areas, one being criminal justice, one being behavioral health, and the third being peer services. And so it's about how we create these opportunities for people to experience that sense of hope. And I like my colleague David Best's idea about really it's about contagious hope. And you heard both Ashley as well as Skip talk about that as one of the key motivators that helps people move to that next level or that next stage in their life. So if we could go to the next slide. So this is a chart that shows a comparison of the United States versus other major industrialized nations and the rate at which we incarcerate our citizens. If you click once, and what you can see at the top of the heap is the United States of America. Click one more time. And in fact, we have more citizens, click one more time. We have more citizens locked up in our penal system than the next 28 countries combined. Click one more time. So in fact, more than 1 in every 100 adults in the United States is in jail or in prison. I don't know about you, but for me, that's unconscionable. And this is not something that's new. The criminal justice system is the new version of what previously we might have referred to as slavery or indentured servitude. So click one more time, and you can see in this graph the breakdown of who's under correctional control. And this is a little bit old data, but it still holds true. We have, if in America, 1 in 31 people is under some form of criminal justice supervision. And you can see that if you are Black, that amount is tripled. You have a better chance of being under correctional control as a person of color than you do graduating from high school in this country. And again, it's a fact of life, and it's something that many people don't seem to really appreciate. Next slide, please. So I want to propose an idea that I call promoting recovery and offense desistance, or PROD. And it's about the shift in philosophy and approach from addressing crime to really promoting this idea that people learn how to live pro-social lives. And the classic definition of desistance, and this comes from Jim McNeil and Shad Maruna and others, basically is about how people learn to replace a particular behavior with its opposite. And so in this case, we're talking about antisocial living versus pro-social living. And so particularly with regards to criminal justice is how and why do people stop offending and move on with their lives? And there's really 3 sets of desistance factors that are evidence-based in terms of the research. One is people mature out or grow older. And we certainly see a decrease in the number of crimes that are committed by people who get to those advanced stages of age. Then secondly, has to do with a set of social factors. What are the connections and the bonds that are necessary in order to promote that shift? And for a lot of people, it's going to school, it's getting a good job, it's getting married, it's having a mentor. And those relationships are what help promote that shift or re-imaging of the individual. And then at the heart of it is this identity factor. How you label yourself and how others labels you contributes to your behavior and the consequences of those behaviors. So there's 3 areas or domains of desistance. First is behavior. You know, in the recovery world, we talk about change your playground and your playmates. Well, that's part of it. And how you go about what you do on a daily basis matters. And then secondly is, of course, labeling and your own identity and your own sense of self-efficacy. And then lastly is who I belong to. What groups am I affiliated with? Next slide, please. And so all of this leads to ways to really promote this notion of desistance. And it really is about how we can track changes in people's identity as well as other intermediate and long-term outcomes, and focusing on strengths and challenges and how people overcome those is a lot of what the services that are offered can focus on. So I'll skip the metrics, but obviously writing is an important way of documenting change over time. And then there's really 4 areas to focus on in terms of rehabilitation. And these are things that can be pursued simultaneously in order to promote this idea of desistance. One is just simply personal. What sort of changes in skills and abilities and motivation does the person experience over time? And then secondly, what are the social areas of life that can be changed? And I'm really talking here about or relabeling. And this is something that has to be done within the community. So yes, I may change my own sense of who I am and how I describe myself, but a big part of this really comes from the community acknowledging that change and doing it out loud and doing it in a way that promotes more of that. So can you go and pick up your daily newspaper? I know we don't have newspapers anymore, but online, can you look at your newspaper and see stories of people who are in recovery, stories of resilience, stories of people who are being successful after having gone through the lived experience that got them in the newspaper the first time? Probably not. Or if you do, it's probably not the headline. What's the headline is how many people got arrested, how many people got locked up. So we need to change that dialogue so that we're spending at least twice, if not 4 times as much time celebrating successes as we are lifting up people who are being punished. And that's research-based. We've known this for decades, but it's hard making that shift. And then morally, our state and communities owe a debt of retribution to end punishment. And so how do we do that in terms of people's abilities to get their records restricted? In my state here in Georgia, you can't get your record restricted. You can't get an expungement. You can get restriction on your record, but there's no such thing as expungement. And then there's all these other collateral sanctions. For example, you may finish your sentence, but the parole board says you got to wait 5 years before you're eligible to apply for a pardon. And there is no objective evidence to support that length of time. And then other things like being able to requalify for occupations. And so it's about how the community has a role in restoring the person's citizenship and being able to promote and celebrate those identity shifts and the real product of people contributing to the good, not just of themselves, but their community and their society. So the key themes that I really heard Ashley and Skip both talk about was, number one, the impact of being able to help others. And the word that was used most by both of them was this sense of hope. And I would add simply, it's contagious hope. When you're around other people who have been able to overcome and go through challenges and you're facing them, there's nothing more impactful or powerful than that. And that's something that our criminal justice and other human service delivery systems are starting to find out. And it's not about replacing clinical services or replacing criminal justice services. It's about enhancing them with peer recovery support. People who have lived experience, who can walk beside both the supervising officer as well as the returning citizen and be that bridge to this thing that we call redemption. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephen.
Wow, you guys are something. Wow. Thank you. I go through this like with every Recovery Live because it is, these are the voices that I think are the most powerful in our, really in our world. And every time I listen to people with lived experience, just talk about both their experiences and what they've been able to do in terms of recovery. I'm constantly inspired, and my own recovery journey gets strengthened as a result of that. So Ashley and Skip and George, thank you, all three of you, for sharing today and for really getting the chat mega excited. It's just comment after comment. Thank you. Right on. Go for it. It's wonderful. So let me jump into a few questions. There's a whole bunch of them. And Ben Bass is asking, can we get a link to Ashley's program? So Ben, we'll get that in the chat box for you shortly. So let me get to some questions. And there's a lot of them. I don't know that I'm going to have an opportunity to get to them all. One of the very first ones that I just want to raise with George really quickly is, this came in the chat box, George, and it said, some people might feel that PROD is a bit of a negative acronym. Can we have this conversation already? So could you share a little bit why you went that way?
That is absolutely intentional. I appreciate the question, because the PROD is really for the system itself. It's about, and really that's the name of a program that I developed 10 years ago to begin to help officers understand this transition. And so it really was kind of a prod. It's to say what you've been doing can have better outcomes if we pay attention to this additional set of factors. So the traditional approach focuses on risk, need, and responsivity. And so I tapped into that by saying responsivity means how we respond to one another. And this prod is for you to kind of expand your conceptual and behavioral skills in order to be able to accommodate peer recovery support and other ways of really promoting this idea of offense desistance. Fantastic,
George. Thank you. I'm going to jump to another question, but I want to point something out that Chris just said in the chat box, and I think it's really, really important. It's really powerful. And Chris says here, I don't like to say my recovery, but instead discovery. My lived experience has allowed me to discover who I really am. And I have been saying a similar thing for the last couple of years now, because there's not much in my past that I really want to recover. And in fact, what is happening as a person in recovery is that I am discovering those things that I had hoped for, and I knew were within my grasp, but I just could not get there. And so, Chris, I just wanted to say I hear you. I totally agree, and thank you for sharing that. There's a direct question here for you, Skip, and I know you are no nonsense, and so I'm gonna throw it out to you. And choose whether or not you want to answer it. But here's the question: was if you could share, were you dealing with a co-occurring set of illnesses, not just a chemical dependency, but also any mental illness that might have actually precipitated the use of drugs in order to self-medicate?
Definitely. Yes, I was. And no, I'm not afraid to speak on that. It was the mental illness that I tried to self-medicate that led me to the drug addiction that led me to criminal justice. Therefore, that places me right in the center of the intersectionality of behavioral health and criminal justice. The thing is that when I started my recovery process, I had to learn about both devils that were hanging over me. I had to learn about the mental illness, and I had to learn about the substance abuse. And I couldn't help one without helping the other. I had to attack it from both sides. And once I came to grips with all of that, I was able to move on in my journey. And the thing is, today, I am still in active recovery from both mental illness and substance abuse. January 1st will give me 13 or 14 years, but it doesn't mean that I'm not too far away from it, but it means that I keep it in front of me because I know it's not something I want to go back to.
That's beautifully stated. I mean it, Skip. And I am right with you. I have a co-occurring disorder, same exact situation, using in order to self-medicate those symptoms away. And it was really challenging to admit to myself that I had those co-occurring disorders because my primary issue was a substance use disorder. So it was difficult to admit, and it's because of the stigma around mental illness that golly, I actually have a mental illness. And had I addressed this 40 years ago, I may have saved a whole bunch of us, including myself, a lot of grief. So thank you for sharing that, Skip. I mean it. It's really important. Ashley, I have a couple of questions for you, and I'm gonna I'll pitch these out, and if George or Skip want to add to that, that's fine. This one comes from somebody in Washington, and the individual saying, we deal with the fact that a large percentage of folks in jail and prison are living with some form of mental illness and or more often a co-occurring disorder. Any comments on this from you, Ashley? And then I'm gonna check in with George on the same thing, because I just heard, we know what Alan thinks about this. So Ash, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Skip. There's a lot of mental illness, very much untreated and hasn't been treated in a very long time. And so I see a lot of that. But I also see a lot of different things. And I responded to someone in the chat box that I refer to it as recovery capital, that not only is it just mental illness, but we're talking family support, social circles, physical health, mental health, environment, stuff like that. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a good paying job? Do you have a vehicle? Do you have a means to get to work if you don't have a vehicle? All of those things matter. At keeping individuals out of the criminal justice system, or just like saying screw it, and ending up back in it, because all of that is really challenging. And then all the orders, the laundry list of stuff, I know Skip, you can probably attest to that, that's expected of you to accomplish once you get out. And we're talking just treatment, whether that's like therapy or IOP or psych eval or late ac eval. And then we're talking insurance, and then we're talking money. I mean, there's so many different things.
Wow. Ashley, well said. George, final thoughts on this?
So it's really ironic that we somehow think people fit in boxes when in fact the human condition is all of those and more. So it really is about helping the individual articulate what they think their next step is and how they think it's best to proceed. So I won't come in with my sword of evidence-based practices and jump off my horse and say, here's what you need to do. But rather it's about joining and understanding the person's worldview and then being able to help them move into whatever they think their next step is. And that's very different than the clinical approach.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to throw this out. I think that all three of you, because I think, all three of you may come at this with a little bit different answer. In Washington State, one of the Department of Corrections compliance rules is a no contact position between releasing incarcerated citizens and those previously incarcerated individuals. And I can remember when I came out of the penitentiary, if I even had a contact with somebody on parole or who was part of the criminal justice system, I risked being violated and going back. So I knew that was some serious stuff. And it always made me question, how is it then with if I've got the lived experience and I'm in recovery, how do I support my brothers and sisters who may be coming out if I can't even have contact with them? So this is what they're saying. Those previously incarcerated individuals, it seems to be sort of counter to the whole idea of recidivism reduction. Do you have similar rules in your state? And if so, how do you accommodate that release compliance requirement while performing your miracle work?
Me, right?
You can start, Ashley. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll check with all three of you, but yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard. I want to say like nationwide that felons can't hang out with felons and anybody who's on programs can't hang out with another person in that program. And excuse my French, but it's complete bullshit because we are the people who help each other out. And when that's all we've known for so long, it's really hard to, just start from scratch and just detach from everybody and everything we've ever known. So as far as the program goes, I completely disregard it. And I challenge program case management to challenge their own rules about it because if two people are doing well, why can't they be around each other? That just doesn't make any sense. So it, I think, is a pretty universal rule that just should go away. But I challenge it. It exists here, but I try to do my best to work around it.
Ashley, wonderful. Thank you. Skip?
In New York State, that also exists, but there's ways around it. For instance, in New York State, you cannot go back into a facility without written permission. If you're on parole, you must have written permission from your parole officer, plus written permission from the facility warden. Once you come off parole, there still might be some issues, but I guess what they look at is your level of rehabilitation, which strikes me as funny and strange because the level of rehabilitation does not come from you. It comes from within us. So if we want to go back into these facilities to help, we should be able. And then when you look at parole officers and probation officers, you have a whole group of people sitting in a room with maybe about 20 chairs and about 50 people shoved up in a room waiting to see their parole officer. Of course, there's going to be commingling, there's going to be talk and things of that nature. When you go into programs, there are going to be people who you were locked up with. So those laws really for New York exist just on the basis of basically going back into the facility. And the funny thing is into the facilities where we all need to be. We all need to be in the facility talking to people who are getting ready to go home. No, we should be talking to people when they first come into custody and getting them prepared for what's happening on the outside.
Beautiful, Skip. Thank you.
I just want to share something.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ashley.
So I actually joke about, I was in drug court in the punitive time and I was in drug court at the progressive time. And we kind of joke about it because back in the punitive time, I actually got incarcerated for getting a ride to drug testing with another drug court individual and had to write a letter about how it was bad for my recovery. And we joke about it now, but they're like horrified they even did that these days. But it's just kind of humorous now to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic that, yeah, stay away from all felons, but show up at this office at least once a month and hang out with them, and then come to groups with them at least once a week or even more frequently? Well, so I just want to say that the whole notion of peers helping peers really gets at the heart of that rule not making a lot of sense. And I'll tell you, I get paid by the state of Georgia to train both what we call certified addiction recovery empowerment specialists, or CARES, as well as forensic peer mentors. And the same organization that pays me to do that sometimes will not hire the graduates of those programs because they have a felony conviction. And for the life of me, I can't quite figure out what's that about. It's kind of speaking out of both sides of our mouths, and so it's kind of time to do some soul searching and figure this out.
And can I just add? So here's the thing: the system needs to change. Who better than to change the system but those of us that have been directly affected by it, and those of us who are affected by it. So when you look at the system, we need to build ourselves up. We need to go into policy. This is one of the reasons I went back to school, not just because I'm a peer with a master's in life, but because in order for me to sit at the table and change policy, I needed to be able to speak that same language. So I needed to have that collegial discourse. I needed to know that rhetoric. That's why I went back to school. So another thing we need to do is we need to open up educational programs for people coming from lived experiences, coming from these institutions. They should have the right to also go to school, go to higher education. You have so many masters and doctorates residing in concrete cells that if only given the chance at education could go out and help join the fight to change the system. Wow, and that's coming from me, a college sophomore, loving it at age 55. I'm going to become a doctor.
I have no doubt.
Everybody will call me Dr. Skip.
That's right, Dr. Skip.
And I'm going to change.
You've earned that today here, Dr. Skip. I assure you, there is no doubt. And folks, listen. I could sit here for the next couple of hours and just chat with you, with all three of you, and have more and more questions come. But our time has come to an end. I know that there's many folks who have put stuff into the chat that we're really hoping to get a response. We've got the presenter contacts. If it's something that you really want done and you really need to talk about, we're happy to make that happen. Just shoot us an email. Let us know what it is you want to know, and we'll get it to the right presenter and make sure that you get a response for that. I want to thank Ashley, Skip, George. You guys were just amazing, and all of I'm a justice involved here myself, and when I listen to the three of you, it really truly gives me great hope. I mean, Ashley, your comment about it used to be the punitive, and now we laugh about that. Why I was arrested riding to go get my drug test. It's not funny, but it is. But it's horrifying. And I think that the three of you just gives me great hope that we continue to improve reentry and recovery opportunities. I know it's hard. I know the system doesn't want to change, and they don't really want to hear from us. But we are doing and making a difference, and people are listening. So we're thrilled that all of you could be here with us today, the presenters and the participants in the audience, and identifying ways to reduce incarceration, increase access to recovery, and then support our brothers and sisters. That's what it's all about, right? So listen, we hope you'll join us for our December Recovery Live. recovery and resilience through the holidays and beyond. We're going to discuss some challenges and strategies around dealing with large holidays in the winter months. That's going to be on Thursday, December 17th, a week earlier because of the Christmas holiday. And folks, before you run off, be aware a link to a satisfaction survey is going to pop up. It takes less than 3 minutes to complete. We hope that you give us our feedback, because the reason Recovery Live is the way it is today is because we listen to all of you. So thank you again. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to seeing you guys all in December. Take care now.
Love and appreciate you all. Bye-bye.